Well, hello everyone. Joe had an emergency, so I will be on to host for you. We should also have James on here shortly. He also had an emergency, so our IT team is having a rough Sunday apparently, but hopefully that all gets better. But me and Coach are here, and we are going to talk about. We both rewatched the game. We're going to talk about what we saw, a little more in depth, right? A little bit more of a critical eye too.
Yeah.
You don't want to be Debbie Downers as soon as it's post win, but on Sundays you can have a little bit more of a sober thought, so that'll be fun. And then, first off, guys, you know how it is. Welcome to Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And right now, we got our promo. Use promo code IT1. You will get 2 months of Inside Texas for only $1, meaning you'll be able to subscribe to the #1 team in the country's website. That's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
Since 08. That's pretty wild. So, UT Parking absolutely stopped the count. We don't need any more games. We've already won it. Let's do this BCS style. And Texas is the national champions, and we can go and end it. Hook 'em, Cotton. Hook 'em. And Brett Nelson, hoping Georgia wins out before they come to Austin 1v2. They can be had. They miss Bowers a lot. I think Beck is a tad overrated. Yeah, of course, 1 versus 2 F1 weekend. That's just going to be crazy. That's going to be awesome for the city, man. And I was way if Texas was 2 and Georgia was 1, it really didn't matter to me. But having basically a national championship mid-season is pretty sweet.
Man.
Cool. We watched the end of the Georgia-Kentucky game on the post game last night, but
Okay.
I didn't get to watch it in depth. Did you get a chance to watch
Yeah.
it? How was it?
I did. I thought when we're kind of watching it, Georgia didn't look, let me not say overly dominant, but it felt like a team that kind of couldn't get out of their way. They have positive plays, and then they'll have some stuff that'll hurt them and shoot themselves in the foot. And they're just not that good offensively to kind of overcome that as they have been in the past. But the defense still played lights. Their defense played lights out, honestly. Of course, anytime you can hold somebody to no touchdowns, I think that's good. But and their defense was on the field all night. They were tired, but they still found a way to make plays in the end. It's like, gosh. Like, when are they going to break? Like, like you thinking fatigue is going to set in? Like, when are they going to break? And they never did. So, I mean, good game, though.
So was it that Kentucky played super up and had like an amazing game, or really Georgia just looks kind of vulnerable comparative to the previous years?
I think they looked vulnerable. They couldn't just run the ball consistently either. They didn't have running lanes that they had in the past where they can just kind of lean on people and run. I kind of saw that, Kentucky had a lot of tackles for loss. They got a lot of pressure on Beck, forcing a lot of errant throws. And so I thought, like, Kentucky's defense, and Mark Stoops been a defensive guru. I mean, let me not say guru, but a great defensive coach. Like, he did a great job at stuffing the run. Plus, they had their starters back up front. And so Kentucky's defense, like, they balled out. So I don't want to take anything away from them. Georgia just was able to do what Georgia does normally. And it's not just because Georgia isn't that good. I thought Kentucky played well, too. So I got to give them some credit.
Yeah, I need to sit back and watch it. I've been having to go through ULM tape. ULM, man, that's a fun rushing offense, man. They're going double wing, dude. They're doing diamond formation, double wing. Like, it's a really fun rushing offense. But I haven't been able to watch any of like the Georgia, Kentucky. But since we talked AP poll, let's pull it up.
Yeah. Oh, you see it.
Texas #1, Georgia #2, Ohio State #3, Bama #4, Ole Miss #5. Man, the SEC is represented here.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the top 6 are SEC. Sheesh, man. And we don't play any of them besides Georgia.
I know. How did that work out,
That's
man?
awesome, man. All the rival fans are mad. They're like, y'all got an easy schedule. And I hear Texas fans being like, no, we don't. Yeah, we do. And that's a good thing. I'm glad we got that schedule. That's super cool, man. Ole Miss has just been killing it, right, with Jackson Dart. They haven't really played big teams, but they're playing bad teams as well as you can play them.
Yep.
Tennessee as well. I think they set the half passing record last night, or points record, last night. So Tennessee with Nico is going to be a problem. Miami and Cam Ward, right?
Man, talk about it. Yeah, doing his thing. Which we kind of knew he would, though, right? And Miami was just a quarterback away from probably looking really good like they are. So,
yeah, but he's got a good chance for Heisman.
Yeah. Oregon finally scored. I guess their offense kind of took off yesterday, huh? Finally.
Yeah, weird squad. And that's why you got to be wary of like the 1-year coaching hype, right? Because Dan Lanning, people were like, I mean, they're about to hire him to Bama. And then now this year, it's like, all right, it's like Sonny Dykes at TCU in that year, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we get way overexcited in those year ones, and we need to see a body of work from coaches. I'm guilty of it too. I was like, he's going to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma at 15, they looked better versus Tulane. I'm at least glad some of the people we're playing are ranked, so we can have a good resume here. OU South Carolina was probably the most fun game yesterday.
That was so. Oh man, look. If anyone watching that game, watching South Carolina play, like don't ever leave the game into the refs. Put the ref games in the refs' hands, because man, like they got South Carolina at least twice, 2 pick sixes, right?
Yeah, the refs were all over that game.
Come on,
to the point where the announcers, who are basically not supposed to mention that kind of stuff, were even like, "All right, well, the refs played a part in this one."
Yeah. I mean, it was bad. That they helped him a lot with that. But yeah,
Michigan handled business, which is at least what we needed to see from Michigan, right? You don't want to see them get in a dogfight the week after we play them with, So Michigan handled business, and then A&M sneaking into 25th. Have you heard anything about Wigman?
I haven't, but that new quarterback.
Yeah, there's going to be quarterback controversy, but I also can't make fun of A&M for quarterback controversy because of what we're probably about to have to go through.
True
with
that.
our fan base.
True that.
That'll be kind of fun. So, but number one, first time since 2018, man. Wow. What's up, James? How you doing, man?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a toilet leak.
All good, man. Yeah, you definitely want to handle that immediately.
Yeah, I was helping my dad wipe up some water, so it was not fun.
No, it's all good, dude. We were just talking about how Texas got the number one spot.
Oh, yeah. Saw that earlier today.
How old were you in 08?
Either 7, probably 7.
7. I was in 08. I was probably a freshman in high school.
Okay.
In 08. But
yeah, that's number one. I was gonna make the graphics. Is this number one first time since 08 or 09?
08.
Dang.
Yeah. I guess Talks Texas did like a timeline of like historical events, like Obama's presidency, like Bitcoin, like it shows like all the things that have happened since 2008, man. It's absolutely insane. Please acknowledge this is all rat poison, and if we acknowledge or are excited about being ranked number one, that means the team isn't capable of playing well. Yeah, Justin, that's kind of funny. Like our fan base is still like emotionally stunted because they're like, "Oh, I don't want to be number one." What do you mean you don't want to be number one? That's all we've wanted for a decade is to be number one.
Right. Well, I feel like a lot of people forget now that just in the 2000s that was the norm. From like like 04 to it was probably 09. 2010, they were always top 5. Like I think people are just not used to it, and we're assuming this is like still Tom Herman, where it's like, oh shoot, if there's pressure on them, they're gonna do bad. It's completely different.
That's not rat poison to be like properly ranked. I think that's the number one.
Ranked, yeah.
So it's like that's where it's like it's properly. Georgia was ranked number 1. Bama is ranked number 1. I mean, somebody has to be ranked number 1.
Yeah, it's just part of the territory now, and that's where we want to be.
Yeah, everyone's like
the pressure. I like it, honestly. Target on my back. Target's always been on my back. I'm ready to live up to it. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a different psychology, right? Yeah. Chasing then versus being chased, but also Texas gets everyone's best shot. Everyone hates Texas, man.
Yeah,
like everyone wants
Baylor right now.
Yeah, so it's like everyone wants to get that one anyways, and so it's a different kind of pressure, but it's still. I mean, we have to learn how to deal with that as well, and it's not our fault that Georgia had a weird game versus Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly.
Respect UK guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. They what a weird thing to like have that game versus South Carolina and then take.
Dude, I would rather get blown out by Georgia. That was just a depressing way to lose.
Dude, it was, and Georgia's still Georgia, man. Watching the end of that game, the coaching there is so strong. They know how to win those kind of games. What do you think about Texas A&M people? I think it's good.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, what's the inverse?
You know what I mean?
So, and also we got some Quinn news. Not a major injury. week to week, which is the game Sark plays always with everybody. But week to week, and he could be out versus ULM. We're not saying he is, but if he was, it would be largely precautionary. So it'd be able to let him rest up because we're gonna have that bye right after too. So if he doesn't play versus ULM, it's not some serious event. It's probably just, hey, let's get him 2 weeks to hang out before conference play. So that's good news.
Very good news.
You know, and if Quinn is a competitor, man, that's brutal. Do we watch Arch going for 5 touchdowns as a competitor? You're like, I'm not injured.
Yeah, I thought he tried to fight through that last night. He's like, okay, I'm hurt. Let me get down. But yeah. I think he's a tough competitor. He's gonna want to come back as quick as possible, especially before Oklahoma game anyway.
Yeah, and remember that one time he came back for the Oklahoma game, he did all right.
He lit him up.
Texas kicking ass, but the injuries will catch up to this team and cost us a game or two. I mean, running backs, of course. But I feel like Jaden Blue was kind of a precautionary thing. I don't know the word there, but I don't feel like we have of course, Quinn, right? We're going to be okay versus ULM, guys. We can win with Arch Manning.
State too, probably after last night showing for them.
So I don't feel like we have any major. CJ Baxter and stuff, but also running back is one of the more plug and plays positions in the sport, luckily. But can you imagine the reaction if someone told you? Yeah, can you imagine the reaction if someone told you 10 to 20 years ago that Arch Manning might start our first game in the SEC? That would be a trip, man.
Yeah, it would be.
Dude, ESPN is milking it for everything they're worth. I've seen every Arch touchdown individually as its own clip on TikTok. And I'm just like, every single time he threw the ball.
Hey, it did well for us yesterday, though.
Yeah, it does, man. The Arch Manning algorithm is insane.
It is.
It made national news when he committed. It was on actual news networks that Arch Manning, it was crazy, dude. It's that kid has so much pull, it's insane. All right, let's talk a little bit of the game, though. So we went through and did the rewatch. Kind of the more sober analysis. And me and Coach were talking pregame. We got more guns than them. We just got more athletes. So it wasn't particularly the cleanest game we played or the most cohesive or anything. It was just we got a lot of dudes and our depth is stupid. And so we could kind of just really, I don't know. What would you say? Would you say it's C game for us? I would say low. I'd say low B.
That's kind of how I felt. It was a good but not great performance. I think people the casuals see the Arch Manning highlights, but more so we were watching every play. I see some of the sacks we gave up when he was in, stuff like that. Not being able to run the ball as well in garbage time. I noticed. So I think like you were saying, it was probably not our best performance. Michigan was definitely a more impressive game. I would even say that Colorado State we looked more sound. It's just like I said, we've got way more dudes. The Jimmys and Joes just showed out. The athleticism. It was kind of just if Arch didn't see a read like we saw, he could just run and do something crazy or just dump it off to I think it was Wingo or I can't remember who took that screen and just housed it. It was just a pure display of athleticism, I would say, in that game.
Yeah, I gave us a B minus. It's things to clean up, right? But if you can still dominate. And with all the kind of little mistakes we had, man, it kind of shows how good of a team you are. But because we don't want turnovers, right? I think Gibson fumbled going into the red zone, going into the end zone, or close to the end zone.
Quinn's weird interception. It seems like every 3 games, Quinn's just going to have a throw where you're like, what happened?
Right.
Yeah. There was one of those, if you saw, when he was looking out into the flat early in the game, and he just threw it to nobody. And I was like,
Yeah, he has those. So
we get his fumble back when he fumbled on the screen. Then that dude does not fair catch the ball at all, man.
Yeah.
I don't want that to cost us later on. It's okay to call a fair catch.
Yeah, Silas Bolin makes me nervous with his punt returns.
Man.
Because we're going to pay for that eventually. You don't want to pay for that in a close game in the SEC thing. So it's just hey, man, we get it. I think Eric made a good point. He's a little frustrated, right? He comes from Oregon State where he's running numbers up, and now you're in a crazy deep wide receiver room, and you can tell when he gets the ball, he starts to go to work, man. He's trying to make something happen. So I think he's just kind of forcing a little bit. We need to just tell him, hey, man, you don't have anything to prove, man. You're a good receiver. You're going to make your play, but don't on our punt returns, man.
Right.
You don't have to try to catch those when they're running straight at you. It looked like he expected the running back turnout. Yeah, I think Wisner needed to continue on with his route, and Quinn kind of threw it. But yeah, that one was a little frustrating. And then Arch too, right? Like awesome highlight. It's hilarious that we're like nitpicking a 5-touchdown debut. But we got to do actual analysis here. We can't just do the ESPN version of this. So Arch is also human, right? There was plenty of times he was holding the ball too long. You're watching him in the pocket, and you're like 1, 2, all right, go, and it's about a second too late. And a lot of times they couldn't make us pay for it. He didn't pick up the weak side nickel blitz, which if you're a quarterback, you have to know to pick that up.
Right.
Anytime you see the safety capping that nickel, that's an obvious, because that nickel can just fire on the blitz. The safety is going to pick up that number 2 receiver or number 3 or whoever it was in that instance. So as a quarterback, you have to be aware of that and know that you have to have that, because Banks has a guy that he has to block inside. So little things like that. And I know a Manning knows that. I think it was just, he was in that situation. Hold the ball a little bit too long. But his natural throwing ability and his release is super special. That's where it's different. Like some of the passes he made, like the one to Wingo rolling out.
Yes, he didn't even get his shoulders around all the way. He just let it go.
And the release is so fast, man. It's like,
gosh.
And then I think his best throw was that one in the end zone. That kind of fade in the end zone was beautiful. So his natural ability is 100% all there. We saw his playmaking in Colorado State, right? The when he shovel passed it to Bolden. And then, yeah, good point. 67 yards when he wanted it.
Hey,
it looked like the original Archie on that one.
He did. He gave DB a little move.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a stat earlier today. It was like the most yards in a game by Eli and Peyton. And I don't think either of them surpassed like 15 rushing yards in a game in college.
Yeah, it is insane. Which is also weird, right? It's just weird that both of those brothers, because Cooper got athleticism. He was a wide receiver. It's just weird that those ones didn't get it. Jonte got his first career TD and then a second. Yeah, that first quarter score by Jonte where Quinn threw it kind of came in on like essentially a drag, basically. It turned it into a post, and his acceleration was crazy.
It was.
That's when I knew our depth was stupid.
That's the thing. That's why I know Eric has said it a bunch of times, but our second, third team guys probably started a lot of other places, but they could be a top 25 team too, man. There's just so much talent. There's so much talent.
That's kind of the difference, I think, in these UT teams now versus say 5 years ago or even 8, 9 years ago. Is like we were talking about Cyrus Bolden. Like Cyrus Bolden put up 800 yards in last year's Pac-12, which was a good conference. Yeah. And he comes here and he's getting lost in the fold, and guys like Jonte Cook are getting lost in the fold. And I remember preseason we thought DeAndre Moore was going to start at one point, and he hasn't necessarily gotten a ton of stats. And I think it's becoming one of those teams where it's like, all right, you sacrifice your yards, their individual stats for the greater totality of the team and how good they can be as a unit. And it's really cool to watch, because growing up was like I was not as aware of. I remember the Colt McCoy years vaguely, but most of my generation is we remember the that 5-7 year afterwards, and then the 110 win season, 14, 15 years. So it's like they're on they're getting to that point where they have the dudes 2, 3 on the depth chart that's similar to Georgia and Alabama, and I think that's the difference, especially the receiving room, the line, everywhere.
Well, this offensive depth, like no one can touch this. Like you're talking, I'd have to see Georgia's depth on defense because it's Georgia. But like you come out and then Jonte Cook and Ryan Wingo come in and Arch Manning come in. No one's doing that. Yeah. Like that's not a Bama or Georgia depth thing on offense. Like that's a very unique, frankly, weird amount of talent to be able to keep on your roster. Ashley, we did talk about it. I'm late, but sources are saying Quinn will be week to week and only missing ULM so far. Don't know if y'all mentioned or not. We did. And then Eric reported too that even if he does miss ULM, it'll likely be precautionary so he can rest up, opposed to, he absolutely has to miss it, that kind of thing. But I remember the Colt McCoy years vaguely. Damn, I feel old. Yeah, I mean.
That was like about when I started getting into football, like first or second grade. And then I remember that sad loss. That loss, I remember because I was so young that, TiVo'd it because I had to go to bed, and then I woke up, watched it, and I was like, oh, I was so sad when he got hurt. That was a core memory right there.
Yeah, Vince and Colt are like my formative years, but I started going to college at Texas right when Charlie Strong era started.
Oh,
so I went from like, we're the greatest thing probably ever to being like, what is going on? It's like, we'll get them next year, guys. We'll get them next year. No, we'll get them next year. And then 13 years later.
I remember growing up, it was in the cafeteria. There was always those kids who were like, this is the year. This is the year. And I was just like, growing up as a Kentucky fan, so I would just be like laughing. I would be like, hey guys, we're both going 5-7 this year.
Yeah, it was brutal, man, to have that switch up and just being like, oh, don't worry, guys, we'll get back on the horse. Oh, we beat Notre Dame. We're back. It was
I still remember that game. It was such a great experience being in the stadium. But man, I felt it too. Like, we're back. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, I don't know, because the defense just gave up so many points to Notre Dame that we might be in trouble. You can't outscore everybody, but yeah.
Hey, but for a second, that was really cool. Tyrone Swoop's dive.
Yeah, dude, the 18-wheeler package. I was like, no, this is what's going to get us back into it.
Oh, man, I remember all those. Gerard Hurd, this is the guy. Tyrone Swoops, this is the guy. Yeah. Oh, man. I remember being at a game. It was, I think, the 5-7 year right after the title run, because I remember we lived in Houston growing up, and then we moved here when I was about 10. So we came up for this game. It was against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State beat them down. And I remember being one of the fans who was like, put in Case McCoy. Mm-hmm. Get rid of Gilbert. Put in Case McCoy. Yep. McCoy's got it. Gilbert's got it. David Asher was probably the best guy for a while there. He just had some injuries.
Yep.
Yeah, that was that period was. He's a shy guy. He was in one of my accounting classes, and he just like kept to himself, completely quiet dude. Surprisingly, like no one bugged him. But David Asher was a cool guy. He just very like
the FCA around the Austin area. I remember.
Yeah, he was just chilling, but yeah, he wasn't like the the big man on campus quarterback walking around and everybody's like talking to him. He just kind of kept to himself. All right, let's look at some stats. So one thing I did not like that we had done well the previous two games. Keep in mind our starting quarterback went down, but our second string quarterback is Arch Manning. So we went 3 for 10 on third downs. So that's not good enough. You at least want 40%. We were doing stupid numbers like 60% and stuff like that. So third down stuff, execution. But like I said, our quarterback goes down. Arch didn't know he was playing that game. So we do have to watch that. And we've been really awesome about it.
Yeah.
Previous.
I think we talked about it like last game. That was the one of the determining factors beating Michigan. We converted so many third downs versus them that and the high clip, even third and long. So yeah.
But that's where our talent is kind of like making up for some of our issues with execution. Because like an average team or whatever would not want to be in that many third downs because you're normally only going to complete like 40%. And that's a losing strategy. But we're so good that we can kind of like cancel some of that stuff out. But like I said, if we have an off game or something like that, really good third down defense, or just like I said, there's always going to be that weird game where we're just off. You have to be kind of wary of that stuff. So we want to make sure we're executing, even when we're winning games 56-7. We're not talking about UTSA. We're talking about this as a proxy for Georgia, as a proxy for A&M when you're playing there. So it's like we're not actually talking about this game. We're using this game to try to project and say, hey, down the road, there's competition that could potentially make us pay for this.
Do you think most of the execution issues were in Quinn going down?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just Arch. Like I said, he looked human. If you take away the 5 touchdowns, which were incredible, and there's plays where it's like, yeah, that's a young quarterback that was a little slow on balls and that kind of stuff. I think Quinn's really shined there. So I think that's the execution. We've had some issues with early downs. We haven't been really efficient early downs on really any of our games, and so that will make you end up in a lot of third downs. But hey, we're in a lot of third downs, but also our red zone is elite, like one of the best in the nation. So as long as when you get your opportunities, you can convert them into touchdowns, not just field goals.
Last year, that's for sure.
Yeah. So that's been interesting. What freshman has been a surprise? I don't know about surprise.
I don't know about surprise, right?
Yeah, because Wingo, we knew he was like that. Colin Simmons, we knew he was like that.
Maybe Gibson, man, what he's doing.
Leading and rushing yesterday, and is he probably second in yards? I'd say now after yesterday's game on the team.
I would
He
have
might
to
be
look.
first. He's close.
Maybe first.
I mean, he might be. I don't know. He might be.
Might be.
Top. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I would say it's got to be Jarrett Gibson because that was a name you didn't even know. Yeah, or yeah, that was a
75.
name you didn't even know. Like the average fan didn't know until Baxter went down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had 75 yards. So yeah, Gibson would be the most surprising. Cotton, you thought Simmons was surprising? I know he's been good, but I mean he's a 5-star pass rusher. So it's like, I mean, he's going to continue. And what he's saying is post presser, he's like, I got to get better. Colin's a bit of an artist out there. He's kind of free flowing, using his athleticism. He's not always doing exactly his assigned job, I would say, but he is showing that he's a special athlete. So if you're able to keep that athleticism going with him staying assignment sound, which is totally natural, he's a young player. It's early in year one. He's going to be awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, he might end up leading the team in sacks at this rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's catching him.
Yeah. Coach, what did you think about Colin when you were watching him?
Just his natural rushing ability, man. Like, I always knew he could do it, right? I think he just needed more reps. I think he got comfortable versus Michigan. Like, I could play at this level with ease, and then you saw him last night, like, his get off. But what I was most impressed about was him chasing the ball from behind. Like, he didn't give up on any play. Like, you saw a complete hustle and effort from him every single snap. If it was run or pass, like chasing dudes from behind, like, man, this kid has a motor and can get after it. So a lot of things you saw when he was healthy at Dunkerville, you saw last night on display. So I think he tried to get away with going inside a few times, just like, I'm a better athlete. I'm going to do what I did in high school, and he kind of paid for it. But then it gives the coaches a chance to kind of coach up a 5-star guy like, hey, I know you think you arrived, but you got some stuff to work on, right? And I think he even posted that, hey, I got some stuff to work on and get better on. And so the fact that he realizes that as well kind of shows just some maturity on his part. But overall, like, a great performance, man, like for a young guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cotton, yeah, I agree that we didn't know he was going to be able to be looking like our best pass rusher 3 games in to his first season. So yeah, I got you on the context is surprising there. And he is absolutely going to be a nightmare the next few years. Want to see a little more action from old Trey.
Yeah.
I want to see some concrete sacks there. I need to see. I don't think they show us pressures on this. I can look on PFF and kind of see how our pressures are. But I hear the fans being like, we're getting a lot of pressures. You don't need sacks. These are not mutually exclusive. You can have pressures that turn into sacks. So this weird concept of like you don't need sacks, you absolutely do. You're going to make them lose 5 to 7 yards. And we're right now, our sack rate is 90th in the country. So that's not acceptable as the number 1 team in the country in the University of Texas. So we still need sacks. And I get it. We're doing good at pressures, but pressures lead to incompletion, sometimes picks, but sacks lead to incompletion, picks, and they're going to lose 5 to 7 yards.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like we want to be able to turn those pressures into interceptions. And I know guys aren't holding the ball super long. We're kind of getting over respected in our pass rush. So I get it. They're moving the ball out quick, but we get guys into 3rd and longs, and there's opportunities there.
Coach, what have you noticed from Trey Moore so far? Like, have you been impressed with much just watching him on rushes, or?
I guess for everything we heard in the spring and heard in fall camp, I don't think I've seen that yet, where he's just kind of dominating guys and getting to the quarterback. But I saw some impressive rushes from him, bull rush wise, and so. But
yeah, in Michigan, he had that one versus Evan Link.
He did, and so I want to see, I guess, more consistency. But I haven't seen a ton of teams like really just drop back and throw the ball 40 times versus us either. So like, he's a special pass rusher. Like, I think that's what he does best. And we kind of broke down film on IT on what makes him so special, right? And it's never been in the normal down situations. The 3rd down situation, 3rd and longs, or pass situations, it's really, really, really takes off. And I don't think we won't see that until Mississippi State, right? Where they just throw the ball more than they run. So I kind of I'll probably gauge him and grade him on how he does versus more of a passing team versus now, because I don't think that's his style of play. And I don't think he was brought in to be that. I thought he was brought in to be a guy that gets to the quarterback. And so everybody's getting rid of the ball quick and trying to run the ball on us, which is weird. So he's kind of been up and down, but I think he'll get his chance to kind of show what he was brought in for as the season goes. So
Yeah, I don't even know who is like a super confident deep passing team.
yeah,
Like OU's going to try it,
Yeah.
but it's like it's not like we're facing like Riley's OU that like they're going to drop back and pass versus anybody type thing. I mean, we would if we played like Tennessee, but we don't play Tennessee.
yeah, exactly.
So it's like I don't really know who is going to be like the we don't care if you got Colin Simmons and Trey Moore. We're going to drop back anyways. I don't think there's a lot of teams on the schedule, so it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to think. Is there anything? Thought Makuba had another good game.
He did.
5 total tackles. I think he makes people pay for throwing over the middle too, which is nice. He runs up and smacks guys. What did we do? Let me see. No Forrest. Ethan Burke. I was going to say, who was our interception? I forgot it. Ethan Burke with his pick 6. But I thought Owen McCown was just kind of in a box yesterday. He didn't have a lot of ability to pass for us to even make a ton of interceptions. Any more key kind of stuff on defense that stuck out to you guys?
I thought for the first time I saw guys get extra yards after being contacted, which in the first 2 games, like once we made contact, guys went down. And I wouldn't call it necessarily missed tackles. I just thought maybe, I don't know, maybe guys from UTSA ran hard. I'm not sure. But other than that, man, I thought we were still rallying to the football. And one thing I continue to praise and be so happy about is the communication from the secondary. Like, at one point, like I heard Gilbo out there, I could hear his voice over everybody else's communicating, like, yo, scoot up, you got this guy. You know what I'm saying? We're pressing the point guy. They're in bunch, but you're pressing him. Get up here. And like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? Like,
yeah.
That has not been there in years past. And so to see that, I haven't seen any kind of coverage bust whatsoever. Everybody knows exactly what's going on. You can tell that maybe they're watching film together. They're talking through it way before games on Saturday, man. And it's like just a level of communication is so great. I'm so happy to see it.
Well, they raised the athletic profile, the athletic ceiling. Like these guys are absolute athletes. I'm not worried about people getting beat all the time at safety. But on top of that, you've really increased the intelligence too. And that's tricky to always do, to jack up the athleticism and the intelligence in equal weights. That's pretty impressive. And as far as the rush game, it seems like we kind of let them get the 2-3 yards and then we just clamp down on them. It doesn't seem like we're like last year where we're hitting everybody 2 yards in the backfield, which I don't care about. I prefer let them run for 3 and think that they have options and try to pass on us. So we're going to play ULM next week that like basically only runs. They're not going to have the personnel to really test us, but it will be nice schematically. They do a lot of unique stuff that will test our gap discipline. You know, like I think it was Rocco that busted the 50-yarder on us.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to test schematically how sound we are. I don't think they have the horses to really like ground and pound us, but it's going to be interesting. This defense, like I have all their numbers. There's nothing in the red. The only thing that's in the red is sacks per game, but everything else is completely green. So we're pretty solid. How are you guys feeling about the running game on offense?
I think we're going to be all right running the ball. I mean, yeah, like we said, like Blue, we didn't have Blue in, but like Jared Gibson's picked up the slack, and Trey Wisner looks like he's coming into his own. I mean, they didn't have necessarily the most impressive game yesterday, but it was kind of what we're saying. Like, it just seemed like we probably didn't fire all the bullets, in our magazine against UTSA. Like, but things still were working out for us. Like, but I don't think that was necessarily our most traditional execution. The running hasn't been necessarily elite, but I think it's good enough when you have, we'll have 3 solid backs coming in who could all break 100 yards. Well, I mean, we'll see if we, in these next couple of weeks have any breakout games on the ground. But I think it's kind of good, but not great so far would be my analysis of it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're down your top 2 backs, right? I mean, what can you really expect?
All right.
So there's this kind of and I think our passing game is just going to make up for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality of it. And they're going to have to, because if you look, let me show you guys this. This is from GameOnPaper.com for advanced stats. It's a little hard for you guys to see, but if you see this purple right here, it says, can you guys see my mouse when I do this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're going to see the 0.25. That's our EPA per rush. Really bad. 12th percentile in the nation compared to all the other teams. So not a good rushing day compared to everyone else for us. If you see everything else, right, we're like 78th percentile, 98th, 95th, 98th, 85th. So not an effective rushing attack last night by any means. But and that's why I say like these are some of the things that like clearly don't matter versus UTSA. But if you show up with 12th percentile running games versus Georgia, that's going to suck.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're definitely going to try to take away the run versus us, and so
yeah, and that's what you're going to have to do, and then convert. I think our pass game is so potent right now with Quinn. Right, I don't think Arch is ready for a Georgia passing attack clinic picking apart. I think Quinn is ready for that. So as long as we can get Quinn back, I think our pass game, and then also some of this screening and stuff that we're doing is kind of serving as a run game for us. When we can, flip it off to Bond, and then he goes for 50.
Mhm.
That's just like giving it to Blue, and then also we'll have Blue back. But
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, the rushing attack wasn't super impressive against UTSA, but like you said, like we'll have Blue back, and assuming we have Quinn, I mean, I think he should definitely be back for that game because that's over a month away now. Like it'll just be like Quinn will be making his reads. He knows the offense a lot better. It'll be a more balanced attack where, like last night, I feel like when Arch went in, it was a little more of like backyard football kind of. It was
just, we got athletes.
Make the play. Oh, I'm faster than you. Like our Arch had that huge run and he was second in rushing, right?
Yeah.
But like that's the thing is like some of the casuals are watching. They're like, oh, Arch is already, he's already ready. Like Arch is the top. Like we saw Acho was saying he's a top 10 quarterback already.
Yeah, and it's like, no, he's not, man.
Yeah, it's like Quinn has made 2 highlight no look passes. That's not by coincidence. It's because he's watching so much film. He knows the playbook so well. Third year in the system, he just knows where everyone's supposed to be before.
Yeah, Quinn's command is so much better than Arch right now, which is what it's supposed to be. Quinn's had 3 years, and so he's not holding the ball as long. If you know what you're looking at, Arch still has a ways to go, even though he had an awesome performance. How do you access that game on paper site? GameOnPaper.com. That's how I do it. Nothing fancy, man. Google Chrome, type in GameOnPaper.com, and I find the game.
I like that.
But it's a cool website, man. You can watch the game live, and it kind of shows you throughout. This is, of course, the game's over, but it shows you, visualizes like our EPA, like how we're doing. And EPA is like a good metric because it takes into account context, right? So getting 3 yards on 1st and 10, we don't care. Getting 3 yards on 3rd and 3, awesome, right? So it's able to standardize football and make sure that it makes sense in context. That's why we like EPA in the advanced stats world. But if you look, there's tons of stuff here, and it can give you a ton of insight way beyond your ESPN level box score on what you're actually seeing. Like for instance, I remember watching the OU game in week 1, and they were beating Temple to death. But if you went and look at the stats, you could see that they had like the worst 3rd down offense in the nation. So it predicts things that are to come down the road that scores simply don't illustrate a lot of the time. But so run game makes me a little bit nervous for sure against better teams. But like we said, we're down our 2 backs. The argument now is like, are we going to have a 1,000-yard rusher? Like, who cares?
Man.
And
the season's not over. I don't think Jonathan Brooks had as many yards the first couple of games. Then he kind of exploded. So, I mean, like, we'll see as the season goes, though. I feel like, and if it's running back by committee and each running back has about 600 to 800 yards, like,
right.
I'm okay with it, right? Because we got the short passing game that kind of accounts for the run game. So, I mean, whatever it takes, I'm completely happy.
Yeah, I don't care if an individual person gets 1,000 yards, but I do care if we can kind of like money ball it to where we can put everyone together and get it. But y'all, let's listen to a quick word from our sponsor, Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, Trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Thank you, LC. Hunter will not win the Heisman. I doubt he'll be invited. Oh, I bet he gets invited.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
and Travis Hunter?
Yeah, Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Man, that game was chippy. Those teams hate each other, dude. It's like
Yeah.
on some weird.
I was like, Colorado State probably regrets talking. They were talking some smack that they're not even as good as last year. I'd say.
Yeah, I know. That was crazy. I don't know why they did that. Also, Colorado like flexing when they beat it clearly, but it's just kind of funny overall because neither one of those teams are particularly good.
Yeah,
they're just acting.
you
like
could probably see both of them not even making a bowl game.
Yeah,
Last night, entertaining.
yeah, it absolutely was. Hey guys, what about Sunbelt Billy yesterday against Aggies?
I like that name.
That's so grating.
Didn't Florida Regents or whatever call a meeting this morning?
Yeah, they have the board meeting today, so his days are probably numbered.
Especially if it's not a scheduled meeting. If they just Board of Regents doesn't just like to show up on Sundays and chat. So that
I mean, I think they made a mistake pushing Dan Mullen out after one bad season now.
Yeah. But also, man, that's what we got to get used to in SEC land. Like they're nuts, dude. Like if you don't
NFL, like where it's like, oh, you had a couple bad seasons.
Yeah.
So it's all right. You don't even get a full recruiting class.
Yeah.
To help them. Like, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, because Sark first year one loses to Kansas. You let him get his guys, and all right, then next year, 8-5, people say probably underwhelming for the talent, and then boom, they finally pop.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I liked Napier because we played him when he was at Louisiana, season 1 versus Sark. And I remember doing the breakdown on him. And he came from Bama. And so they had a lot of that culture in there. I thought he was going to do well, whatever the next level was. But apparently I was wrong. But as far as like all the leading indicators, I was like, this guy's a good coach, man. He's done good stuff at Louisiana, good organization. But people told me behind the scenes the culture is not that good. Stuff I wouldn't be able to know.
Yeah, the whole Jalen Rashada thing too.
Yeah,
that thing was weird and sketchy. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, it's honestly like a roll of the dice. It's like with Charlie Strong, I thought he was going to be good here too.
Yeah.
Tom Herman, I thought he'd be good as well. And then
my Tom Herman factors were just he went to UT, which is meaning in that theory, 50,000 people a year could be the head coach. And then also he went to Mensa. So I was like, oh, he's real smart and he went to UT, therefore he'll do good.
For years, everyone's like, he was the offensive mind behind Ohio State's championship.
Yeah, right.
But every coach you hire, you're always like, he was the secret leader of that team, no matter like.
Yeah, Andrew Applewhite was going to be good at Houston too. I definitely I fell for the young guy coaching trend for a few years there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah. They look cool and they're doing the signs on the sideline. You're like,
yeah,
this guy could be a coach.
Yeah. This guy can do it. You're taking like GAs signaling in. You're like, he could probably be an OC. What's kind of scary, man, is what if Lagway ends up at A&M?
I thought about that.
That would be not good. That would be not good for us. I worry about that.
I don't want to see it.
No, Lagway is going to be the real deal, man.
Do you think he would rip like immediately portal if they fire him?
I don't know. I know he was a loyal kid in the first place, is sticking with Florida. We interviewed his coach. His coach is an awesome guy.
Yeah.
So it's like he's a good kid, man, and he's a smart kid, and he's an insane athlete. So I don't know. I do worry though, and I'm like, hey, man, don't come back to Texas, and definitely don't go to A&M.
Yeah, well, the kid yesterday looked better than Wigman. Is it Page? Is that his name?
What's the second string? Marcel Reed, right?
Reed, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, he was good in the ballgame, and he was good yesterday too.
Yeah, I think that's also probably nailing the coffin for Napier because they didn't even have their starting quarterback, and they were able to do that.
Yeah.
Even though the A&M starting quarterback is really a dynamic athlete. But I knew a guy who played for Herman Houston. He told me if the team actually buys in, Texas will truly be back. Direct quote. Underestimated the difference in personality traits needed.
Yeah, that was.
He came in and set it off on the team. He's like a drill instructor.
That was a different time, man.
Yeah.
I don't even think players. You can see some players kind of uncomfortable even talk to the guy. You remember Sam Ellinger? Herman kept getting his name wrong, but he was too afraid to correct him and tell him what his name, how to say his name. Like, dude.
Oh yeah, I mean, growing up in Westlake, everyone's always gotten people will say Ellinger.
Ellinger.
but
that's that old school mentality of like you have to just come in there and scream at everybody.
Yeah.
And Sark, I think Sark plays that balance perfectly because Sark sets it off all the time too. Like he'll chew you out, but also it feels like he's still approachable.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
True.
And I heard on the back end, Herman got better about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of did start to change his style a little bit, but I think at that point it was kind of too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, like last weekend when Cam Williams had those few penalties, and Sark was just giving everyone hugs on the O-line. That was good to see. Like,
True.
But also in practice, he'll say, you saw it before the Washington game. You see how hyped up he gets.
Oh wait, are you talking about the Alamo Bowl Washington game?
Yeah, Alamo
Bowl.
Yeah. I was like, what the heck? That does not seem like the same guy.
Dude, Sark go watch, like you can watch videos of Sark at USC. Like he was intense. Like he's calmed down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you watch him, there's him mic'd up at the spring game versus USC. Or not versus when he was at USC. And he was much more intense. He was cocky. There was an interview with Matt Sanchez that he said when Sark was young, he used to just be intense and incredibly cocky. So he's definitely matured and like calmed back. But Sark still has that you'll see that look in his eye sometimes pregame or whatever, or him getting mad at the stadium worker. I mean, that intensity is still there, but he's learned to control it a lot. But he has that fire in him for sure.
Yeah, it seems like him and Lane have kind of taken a similar trajectory. Like both those guys who were almost like disasters 10 years ago. People like thought, oh, these guys were in over their head. Now both of them have kind of become in and really.
Well, now they're like intertwined. Like Sark says no to the Raiders job, and then Lane takes the Raiders job, and like they just their paths have done this weird crossing for like decades. And it's like Lane and Sark are both right, like boy genius, offensive mind. But you had Sark that was more of the buttoned up style, and then Lane that was more of the quote unquote like bad boy of offense. And so it's funny. They're kind of the same guys. They just have like this little separate deviation in their personalities. But it's really interesting learning their history because they have such a weird so many times where their paths have crossed.
Yeah.
And if he takes the Florida job, man, that could be problematic as well, man.
Yeah. For his sake, I hope he doesn't do that.
I want to see those guys play each other just for some fact. Twitter media to be off the charts that week.
Dude, if he can get the offense at Florida right and they get the NIL fully maxed out, like it's gonna be a problem for him.
The question is, I was arguing with my buddy because a few of my friends are now Ole Miss grads, so they're like dying on the hill, like he's never going anywhere. But I'm very much in like kind of what you're saying is that it's where Texas was. It's like right now you're like, there's no way how it's poisonous culture. But you got a guy like if they let Lane do it his way, that's the question. Is like that old fashioned board of regents, are they going to be like cool with him, quote tweeting Feinbaum and crapping on him every week?
Right.
That's a question. But if they let him do it his way, it's like they could boom turn the key and they're right where Texas is 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, I think you do. But also Florida's got to get kind of desperate, right? Like Texas took us 3 coaches to kind of be like, all right.
Yeah.
Freelance Society was at the game. You can tell how well Sark knows his quarterbacks and what works for them, especially early downs. Also, teams will catch onto our wide receiver screens. Sark loves screens, man.
He does.
I mean, he's loved them
forever.
Every season.
Yeah.
And I talked about it earlier. He always talks about one of the big things he realized as a quarterback was like, oh, I don't have to be an elite athlete. I just have to be able to facilitate getting the ball to elite athletes. True. And you can tell it's a fundamental part of his offense where he's just like, hey, man, let's throw it 2 yards to Bond and let him go for 50. Yeah. Let's throw it to Worthy outside versus OU game 1, and he can take it 80. Like sometimes we don't have to be that smart and work that hard. Sometimes we just got better athletes. So I think he is very good with his quarterbacks. I think he's very fair with his quarterbacks. He demands a lot, but almost every press conference he'll admit if he got something wrong with them. I think he does a great job with his quarterbacks, developing them, but also mentally keeping them in a good headspace. Because it's tough out there, man. Number one team in the country. You got 100,000 live, everybody on Twitter, us dummies with YouTube channels. You know, there's all of that kind of stuff to deal with. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I was seeing the documentary.
After seeing that documentary about Sark's heart, I thought about that video of him yelling at the assistant that was trying to hold him back in the tunnel. Maybe that scar was still. No, he was just pissed. Like, it's just, you get hyped. I mean, think about the job description, right? You make millions of dollars to lead a bunch of 20-year-olds into battle on Saturdays. I mean, It's an insane job.
It is.
And so it's like, you know, we're trying to simulate war here. I mean, are intense guys, you know, and they do a good job with the PR and the political side of smiling and shaking hands. But coaches are intense. If you know coaches behind the scenes, they're intense guys.
Yeah. Well, most of them played. So it's
right. And they're competitive.
Yeah. A lot of people who haven't played don't realize it. It is basically, there's like the modernized version of gladiator sport. Like,
yeah, it is. It's a blood sport.
Like at its core, it's a blood sport. Like, you know,
right.
So it's,
yeah. So no, I think he just got hyped up, man. It's coaches get a little hyped up. That's what cracks me up with all the coaches too. They're always talking about like emotional security and like not letting, you know, the game bother you, and then the coaches are just freaking out on the sidelines 24/7.
Yeah.
Coaches rarely take their own advice on don't get rattled. Saban all the time would be like, don't be doing dumb stuff on the sidelines, you know, don't let them get the best of you. And he's like throwing his head off.
Yeah. When you see Saban get fired up, it was just almost, it felt like when you saw like your dad get mad or something, you know, it's just like, oh, there's something serious. Like you rarely ever saw him knock.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah. I just think Sark he's an intense guy. All of our coaches, man. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised Jeff Banks ever has a voice. He's just in practice. Like, he's got to be tearing up his vocal cords because he's not even angry yelling. It's just that's how he gets information across on the field.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Now we have a target on our back. I mean, yeah, but we've had it forever.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
Yeah, I mean, well, because in the Big 12, it was like the TCUs. You know, like I said, I was at Baylor, so I saw 2 home games against UT. It's like, dude, that's everybody in the Big 12. That was their Super Bowl when OU and Texas came. And then now it's like we came in the whole UT Tex thing, Tennessee thing. It's like everybody wants to, you know, and we saw Quinn say that thing before. It's like if they're number 3 or number 1, it's still Georgia really wants to beat us. Still, you know.
Right.
Mississippi State's still going to give us their best. Kentucky still going to give their best, you know.
And they all have the motivation of like, yeah, Texas ain't going to walk into the SEC.
Yeah.
So like they all have that kind of thing. And then of course, just the constant kind of like Texas hate no matter what. We can't throw the horns down. Look, they're soft. Like, it's weird. It's the same year. It's like it's Groundhog Day with all the Texas fans constantly. I'm an intense fantasy coach. Yeah. Freaking out your wife and kids. Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah. I like Arch's 24.7 yards per completion. He gets the ball downfield. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad stat.
At all. I think he's always looking to get the ball downfield. Maybe that's why he kind of held on to it on those 2 we talked about earlier. Like, he's looking to make the big play, the home run play. So, but yeah,
he's headhunting.
Great stat.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting though. Being number 1 does take a slight little change. I don't know how much. I mean, we were just number 2. It's not like a crazy jump occurred, but it'll be a difference. And I was worried about, you know, any year I'd be worried about UTSA. This year I wasn't. We won 56-7. So it looks like we're a little bit in a different strata now, which is nice. We don't have to be as fearful of like we're going to get caught resting on our laurels again. We'll have to see. Yeah. I mean, the teams that are going to punch us in the mouth are going to be the usuals. OU's going to give us everything. Arkansas, A&M. But, I mean, that's all we've been working on for a decade is to get the number 1 spot. And I think it's earned. I think it's the number 1 team right now. If we didn't have preseason ratings and we brought nothing into this, and we didn't bring in, knowing people's recruiting classes and stuff like that. And we just watched on-field product. I think saying Texas is the number one team in the nation is actually a fair assessment.
Yeah.
So what does it take to be number one?
Hey, he's the elite fantasy coach. He can tell us.
Yeah, you tell us. You know the path.
Right?
You beat Colorado State. You beat Michigan. Coaches poll has Georgia 1, UT 2, so they're 1 versus 2 matchup set. Both teams have to do their part. Yeah, and I like that, but that's kind of a coach's truce thing. Like, you don't get dropped if you don't lose.
Sure.
But once again, that's cheating preseason rankings. Like, if we just looked at what happened on the field this year, I don't think Georgia's the number one team.
And also, Georgia still has to get by Alabama. It might be a 1-2 matchup, Texas versus Alabama again. You never know. Well, not on play, so never mind. I take that back. It might not be. They got to pass. They got to pass Alabama.
Yeah, at Alabama's gonna be a little tough.
So it's not.
Hopefully, Kroger Field
matchup, but we'll see.
Yeah. And they got to play Ole Miss too, man. Like, Georgia basically got off light in the East, their whole dominant run, and it seems like the SEC this year was like, we're gonna see what you guys look like versus a really good schedule, and if Georgia wins out versus that schedule,
then
they're incredible.
Ever. Like,
went
Tennessee too, who's looking way better defense.
Yeah, so if Georgia wins out with that schedule, dude, they're incredible. UL Monroe might be the best team we've played so far.
General Booty's coming to town.
They're 2-0 for ULM. They're doing a good job. But as far as I've been watching ULM tape today. I have to get ready for my breakdown and write the video tomorrow. I can give you some quick ULM right here. Offensively, they're 126 in the nation, and defensively, they're 93rd in the nation. Now that's with 2 wins, pretty convincing wins too. But they're super run heavy. So they run the 9th most rushing attempts in the country, and they average throwing the ball 16 times a game. That's not how you're going to beat Texas. You're not gonna be able to just run it down our throats, and then General Booty's not going to hit the fade 3 times, and so it's that's the tricky part. But ULM looking better than they were the past few years, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Imagine what Michigan would pay for one of our quarterbacks. I mean, most of the people in the nation right now, we're in a very unique, unheard of kind of situation there. Hit that like button. I'm excited. ULM will be fun. ULM, what's important, the value of ULM is they love to run, and our run fits have been a little shaky at times, and we give up more rushing yards than we did last year. So the focus will be this game to shut down a rushing offense opposed to shutting down a passing offense versus Colorado State. So this is a good game, good practice schematically going into the SEC, because at that point we've had to focus on shutting down run games and pass games. And so you get all these reps versus a very unique rushing offense. They do a lot of cool stuff, a lot of throwback stuff. I've had a lot of fun watching their games. If you like rushing offense, they do a lot of fun stuff. So we're going to have to be disciplined, because, they'll do some diamond formation, double wing, some throwback stuff.
Hard to prepare for in a week.
Yeah. So it'll be really cool. I'm actually looking forward to the ULM game, as long as we're not having people dropping like flies.
Exactly. Let's get in and get out of that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just let them shorten the game, let them run, but they're going to end up getting 3 and outed a lot. And it'll be interesting if they change their strategy a little bit, because you're just simply not going to be able to do that against Texas. But all right, guys, anything else before we skedaddle?
Oh, man, it's good to be number one. You can brag about it, Other than that, man, I think I'm happy about where Texas sits. And I don't know, man, just hook them, man. It's a good time to be a Texas fan right now.
Awesome, man. It's a good time for me to start my job here.
Yeah, you got lucky, man. You get to show up when we're good, man.
Yeah.
I started the channel when first year of SARC, so I got kind of lucky too. Our friends like Fanatic Perspective that were like having to do content during Herman and stuff, just brutal every Saturday night, being like, what is going on?
Well, because it's got to be also this is very serendipitous, because it's got to be great, making content for one of the bigger fan bases, and people are buying in right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was
It's
talking, like, because Joe's one of the only other guys who lives in Austin, so like I've seen him, and he started doing this like Charlie Strong era, and then the early.
yeah.
Like, I wonder what it was like back then.
It's brutal. I mean, Texas fans are great no matter what. And so like we've been lucky there because everybody was riding out. We're lucky in that regard just to be a big fan base and people stayed really loyal. But no doubt, man, number one team in the country. A lot of new people are going to start showing up, which honestly, as a Texas business owner, great, more the merrier. But it will be interesting to see, the next wave. And we haven't had like a bus. I call it like a bus of fans. Like, I got captured by Vince. I saw the Rose Bowl in whatever middle school, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. We haven't had that in a decade, So it's like if we can have another one and there's a bunch of 8-year-olds seeing Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, that's awesome, man. It's going to set us up for that next generation of fandom that we need and we really haven't had. But
yeah, and I'd say last thing, just like the fans that are like kind of nervous and about the number one ranking. I don't think this is like a situation when like, Mississippi State was number one or like when Tennessee was number one a couple of years back. I think like this just shows it's a culmination of all the work that built on classes on top of each other and just the execution. Like you said, it's like we're not it just feels different. It's like when you play a UTSA and the execution wasn't great, you're still covering by 20 points.
Right.
It's like I that's how I feel personally from watching, years of like a lot of the bad teams and where every year it was like, this is the year. It just feels a lot different, and it feels like it's an earned number one, and it's like a team that when they execute, right now they look like the best team in the country, and I don't think people need to be worried about the games like in years past. I think they're, people have a little bit of PTSD from recent history. Anytime Texas big tie, it's like someone's going to get injured. Well, now someone gets injured like CJ Baxter, and it's like, hey, we've got 2 other guys that can do it. It's not like 2019, I just think people
when goes down and we have Arch Manning put up 5 touchdowns.
It's not going to be the Garrett Gilbert case. If Arch Manning had to come in, I don't think he'd throw 5 picks. So,
no.
So
yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Don't wait for the other shoe to drop, type of thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we're good guys. And normally, and I'm one of the people that, I mean, you guys have seen my breakdowns every year. I'd be like, you need to watch out for this. You need to watch out for this. You need to watch out for this. I'm a little bit more calm this year because it does look different. Doesn't mean we're not going to get in a dogfight. Doesn't mean we can't take a loss. We don't need to be so obsessed with the number one ranking that we're like scared of it. Like we can lose, man. We can be the 6th ranked team in the country in the playoffs. We still have a chance to win it. That's the beautiful part of this system. So it's like we don't need to play scared and like trying to hold on to the number one, but appreciate that Sark has been able to build a number one team, man. Exactly. Like that's not easy to do. And so we got to enjoy it. So normally I'm a little fearful of things like that too. But luckily, guys, we're not on the team. So the rat poison doesn't affect us. We're not going to be on the field. So we can enjoy it. But fans, thank you guys so much. We'll be on, me, Eric, and Coach. We'll be on tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for our morning live. And then we also will be having our evening live tomorrow. So please tune in, y'all. We can hang out and talk some more Texas football. Thanks, y'all. Hook 'em.
Peace.